Hey there, and welcome to a deep dive. Tailored just for you. Today we're exploring your Aries moon.
Excellent.
It's not just about knowing your sign, it's about understanding how this fiery placement shapes your emotional landscape and how you can harness that energy to live your most authentic life.
Yeah, you've got that right. One of the most fascinating things about the Aries moon is its ruling planet.
Okay.
Think of Mars as this driving force behind action energy, even a bit of that competitive edge. It's like having a cosmic battery pack that never quite runs out.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Mhm.
We've got Mars, the planet of action ruling the moon, which governs emotions. So what does that look and feel like in everyday life?
Well, it means your feelings are immediate intense, and you probably don't shy away from expressing them.
Right.
It's like that burst of light and color you get with fireworks gone as quickly as it arrived. Yeah.
And it's not about being fake. It's about experiencing emotions fully and moving on.
That makes so much sense. I've always been curious about this whole action-oriented thing with Aries moons. It's not just about feeling deeply, it's about what you do with those feelings, right?
Exactly. It's that act now, think later energy.
Yeah.
Now, that can be an incredible strength when you need to make a decision quickly or take charge of a situation,
Right.
but it's also where cultivating a bit of patience comes in handy.
Because not every situation calls for setting off fireworks.
Precisely. Think of it this way, that Martian energy can make you a fantastic problem solver and a natural leader. But imagine you're in a disagreement, and instead of a measured response, you go full-on scorched earth. Ouch. Okay, I can see how that might not be the most productive approach. So for our listener who's thinking, yep, that's totally me, fireworks and all, what are some practical ways to channel this energy constructively?
One-word outlets, Aries, is all about physicality. So find an activity that lets you move your body. Think high-intensity workouts, competitive sports, even just going for a run when that energy feels a little too much.
So it's like channeling that inner fire into something positive and productive.
Absolutely. And it's not just physical outlets. Remember that Martian energy can also be channeled into creativity. So if you're drawn to painting, writing, playing music, whatever lights your fire, go for it, because that's where you can really tap into the power of your Aries moon.
You know, it's funny, but when you talk about channeling all that Aries energy into creative pursuits, it makes me think of those artists who attack their canvases with a kind of wild abandon. There's that same intensity and fearlessness.
Exactly. That's that Martian energy at work. But speaking of fearlessness, there's another layer to your Aries moon. We should touch on independence.
Ah, yes. The don't fence me in energy. I'm
Ah.
picturing those old westerns with a lone cowboy riding off into the sunset. Is that too cliche?
Maybe a little, but it gets the point across. Aries moons have this innate need to forge their own paths. It's not that they don't value connection, it's just that they're not afraid to stand alone, to trust their own judgment above all else.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about how this independent streak plays out in relationships, because that's where things can get really interesting.
Absolutely. And knowing your need for honesty and directness, it's no surprise that this is a major theme for you in relationships.
So we're not talking about subtle hints or playing it cool.
Yeah.
More like rip off the Band-Aid honesty.
Exactly. With an Aries moon, what you see is what you get. There's a refreshing authenticity to that. You don't play games. You say what's on your mind, and you expect the same in return.
That reminds me of a friend I have with an Aries moon. She once told me that her love language is brutal honesty. At first I was taken aback, but over time I came to appreciate how much easier it made things.
It definitely cuts through the BS, that's for sure. But of course, there's a flip side to everything. And the potential downside here is that this direct communication style can sometimes come across as harsh, even insensitive, especially to those who are more emotionally sensitive.
So it's about finding that balance, right? Honoring your need for honesty without unintentionally setting off fireworks in the process.
Exactly. And that's where open communication and maybe a touch of diplomacy come into play.
Diplomacy. Now, there's a word you don't often associate with Aries. But I get your point. It's about being mindful of the delivery.
Precisely. And this is something to be mindful of not just in romantic relationships, but in all your relationships.
All right, so honesty and directness are huge. What else is important to an Aries moon in relationships?
Well, remember that Martian energy we were talking about, that need for action, for new experiences, that definitely plays out in your relationships as well.
So routine is the kiss of death for an Aries moon.
You could say that boredom is like kryptonite. You thrive on spontaneity, adventure, a little bit of unpredictability, and you want a partner who can keep up.
Okay, so paint me a picture here. What does that look like in action?
Well, imagine this. You've had a long week, and you're both feeling a little restless. Instead of settling in for another night of Netflix, you surprise your partner with tickets to a concert of their favorite band they haven't seen in years. Pack a bag and hit the road. That's the kind of spontaneous gesture an Aries moon lives for.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great example.
Yeah.
And it speaks to that playful, childlike energy that Aries moons often have. It's like they never quite lose that sense of wonder and adventure.
Exactly. And that's a beautiful thing, but it's also important to remember that not everyone thrives on that same level of spontaneity. Some people crave routine and predictability, and that's okay too.
So it's about finding that balance between your need for excitement and your partner's need for stability, right?
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're both able to thrive.
So for our listener who's probably nodding along, feeling incredibly seen right now, what are some practical takeaways when it comes to navigating relationships with that Aries moon energy? This feels like a recurring theme for us today.
It really is.
That balance between the things that come naturally to you as an Aries moon and the areas where a little bit of self-awareness can go a long way.
Exactly. And one of the most important things you can do in any relationship is to communicate your needs directly, which luckily comes naturally to you, but also to be open to hearing your partner's needs, even if they're different from your own.
Because a fulfilling relationship isn't about one person constantly dimming their light to accommodate the other.
Right? Precisely.
Yeah.
It's about finding that harmonious balance where both people feel seen, heard, and respected.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways about your Aries moon that you can carry with you?
Well, first and foremost, embrace your inner fire. That Martian energy is a powerful force. It's what fuels your passions, your drive, your ability to take action and make things happen.
It's that get it done energy that a lot of people probably envy, to be honest.
Absolutely. But it's also about being mindful of how you direct that energy. Remember those outlets we talked about. Finding healthy ways to express your emotions and channel that intensity is key.
It's like learning to wield a powerful tool once you understand how it works. You can create amazing things.
I like that analogy. And speaking of creating amazing things, don't underestimate the power of your independence. It's not about pushing people away. It's about trusting your own inner compass.
That inner knowing that guides you toward the experiences and relationships that are meant for you.
Exactly. And finally, never lose that spark of adventure, that childlike wonder that makes you, well, you.
Because that's where the magic happens, right?
Absolutely. The world needs that Aries moon energy, that passion, that honesty, that willingness to take risks and live life on your own terms.
So to our listener out there, embrace your inner fire, trust your instincts, and never be afraid to shine brightly. And hey, if you happen to set off a few fireworks along the way, so be it. That's just part of the journey. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep diving deep.